The glass door opened with a chime, light spilling across Beaumont Atelier, the most exclusive boutique in Knightsbridge. Everything gleamed, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, watches worth tens of thousands of pounds. When a black man in a gray hoodie stepped inside, the store went silent. Eyes flicked, whispers rose, suspicion filled the scented air. Darius Cole walked slowly, his worn sneakers soft against the floor. He stopped before the Patek Philippe display, eyes on a white steel Nautilus priced at 85,000 pounds. His old backpack hung loose, his hoodie plain, his phone in hand. He looked ordinary, but his mind recorded every detail. A glance at his watch, 12 minutes until his meeting. Lucy Grant, a sales associate, laughed with a white customer. When Darius approached, she turned away. He waited quietly. Outside, a young woman whispered on her TikTok live, "A guy dressed like that asking for a Patek in Knightsbridge. Watch this." Views began to rise. Finally, Lucy turned, arms folded, her smile sharp. "What are you looking for?" "That Nautilus," Darius replied. "Do you know how much it costs?" she asked mockingly. "Maybe try somewhere more suitable?" A few heads turned. Darius stayed calm. "I know the price. I just want to see it." Lucy scoffed. "We don't let everyone touch those." Victoria Hale, the manager, approached, voice calm but firm. "Is there a problem?" "He wants to see the Felipe line," Lucy said quickly. "I told him the price." Victoria studied Darius. Faded jeans, old backpack, composed expression. Then she noticed the Vacheron Constantin on his wrist, its silver glint cutting through the light. She hesitated. "You'll need to place a deposit of 25,000 pounds. "I can transfer it now," Darius said evenly. "Would you like the bank details?" The room froze. Victoria cleared her throat. "It's just policy." "I understand," Darius replied. He took out his wallet, placed a black metal credit card on the counter. The name engraved, Darius A. Cole, shone under the lights. Lucy picked it up, fingers trembling. She had never seen such a card. Murmurs rippled through the boutique. A few phones lifted. The TikTok streamer gasped. He just showed a black card. Here comes the twist. Comments flooded in. "That's karma. Lesson in prejudice." Darius checked his watch. 2 minutes to 3, he said quietly. "Thank you for an interesting afternoon." He retrieved his card, slung his backpack, and walked out. No one stopped him. Victoria and Lucy watched, unsure whether to feel relieved or ashamed. The London sunlight hit the glass, reflecting his calm figure as he crossed into the next building. The elevator doors opened, gleaming steel catching his reflection. When they closed, he disappeared upward. 3 o'clock sharp. Victoria's phone buzzed. A new email appeared. "Emergency board meeting, 3 p.m., conference room A, incident review." The sender's name, Darius Cole. Her breath caught. Lucy stared, pale and speechless. Upstairs, the conference room lights flickered on. No one at Beaumont Atelier yet realized that the man they had dismissed minutes earlier was the one who signed their paychecks, and that their quiet act of prejudice had just turned into the most expensive lesson of their lives. Victoria Hale stood motionless behind the glass counter, her hand still numb from touching the cold weight of the black card. The air inside Beaumont Atelier grew heavy. The lights still glowed, but every word seemed to shatter in silence. A few customers slipped out. Others exchanged uneasy glances. Lucy Grant sank into her chair, her heartbeat racing, the name Darius A. Cole echoing in her mind. Owen Patel, the security guard, stepped closer, his voice low and deliberate. "Mrs. Hale, that man wasn't ordinary. I used to be a cop. His eyes looked like someone investigating something." Victoria's tone was sharp. "Pull every camera feed, lock the data, no one says a word." Outside, Darius walked across the polished stone pavement, his dark shoes striking a steady rhythm. The lobby attendant bowed slightly. "The conference room is ready, Mr. Cole." He gave a small nod. The elevator doors closed behind him, reflecting the composed face of a man who had planned every move of the game. In her office, Victoria opened a new email. The subject line sliced through the silence like a blade. Emergency board meeting, incident review, chaired by Darius Cole. She read it again and again, then called the legal department. The reply came quickly. Cole Horizon Partners completed the building acquisition yesterday. Her whole body went cold. Lucy rushed in, her voice trembling. "Mrs. Victoria, who is he?" Victoria turned the screen toward her. The photo showed Darius in a dark suit under conference lights. The headline beneath it read, "Tech Billionaire Expands Luxury Portfolio." Lucy stepped back, stammering, "That can't be," at the same moment. Owen's phone buzzed. The internal memo was short. Customer asked to leave is the property owner. Maintain professionalism. No public comments. He read it, pressed his lips together. Everything had just spun out of control. On the 17th floor, the conference room gleamed under cold light. Darius sat at the head of the table, his laptop open to a report titled Beaumont Service Audit. 3 faces appeared on screen. Annika Rao, Legal Counsel, Hugo Laurent, Operations Director, and Edmund Beaumont, the brand's founder, calling in from his Mediterranean yacht. Edmund frowned. "Darius, why didn't you reveal who you were?" Darius's tone remained calm. "Because I wanted to see how they treat someone they believe isn't worth serving." He pressed a button, and the screen displayed charts showing customer complaints had tripled, most from people of color or those dressed casually. Annika outlined the legal risks, citing anti-discrimination laws in business. Hugo added figures on rising insurance costs, declining reputation, and an 8% drop in revenue over the last quarter. Darius spoke quietly. "We have 3 options. 1, terminate the lease and close the store. 2, let the media and the courts decide. 3, full reform, transparency, training, oversight." He paused for a moment. "I choose the 3rd, but I want to hear your opinions." Meanwhile, Victoria stood before the mirror in the staff room, her face pale, every wrinkle deepened. She took a long breath, straightened her collar, then walked back to the sales floor. Her voice was calm but resolute. "From now on, every person who walks in here will be greeted as a valued guest. No judgment. No assumptions. We serve with respect." Lucy nodded, eyes glistening, shame mixing with a fragile hope. Upstairs, Darius looked out through the vast glass window. The flow of people along Knightsbridge continued, unaware that a quiet revolution had begun. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "We will not just correct what went wrong. We will prove that dignity can become the standard of business." At 3:15 in the afternoon, the 17th floor conference room glowed brightly. London's sunlight streamed through the glass walls, reflecting off the calm face of Darius Cole. He sat at the head of the table, his laptop open before him. On the large screen, 3 video windows appeared clearly. Annika Rao, Legal Counsel, Hugo Laurent, Operations Director, and Edmund Beaumont, the brand's founder, calling in from a yacht off the Mediterranean coast. The air was tense as a wire. Darius pressed a key. The screen shifted to a TikTok clip showing Lucy Grant's mocking smile, her voice echoing sharply, "You think you can afford that?" The room went utterly silent. Annika leaned forward, her tone icy. "This is documented discrimination. If the public gets hold of it, the legal damage will be severe." Darius spoke slowly, each word cutting through the air. In the past 6 months, Beaumont Atelier has received 23 negative reports about staff attitude. Most came from customers who didn't dress expensively. Today is the 24th, and it's spreading across the entire internet. He paused, eyes drifting to the city skyline below. I didn't go there to buy a watch. I went to see how they look at a human being. Hugo typed rapidly. The hashtag, a Beaumont bias, is trending at number 5 in London. If we stay silent, the brand's damage will be beyond repair. Annika added, the best solution is a public reform, partnership with a civil rights organization, and implementation of unconscious bias training. Darius nodded. I agree, but we won't do it just to protect our image. We'll do it to change the system itself. He opened a new file on screen, the title shining clear, Project Renaissance, Rebuilding Trust in Luxury Retail. The light reflected sharply on his face, determined and cold. The luxury industry suffers from an old disease. It has forgotten that respect is worth more than gold. This store will be the pilot. We will make it right, transparent, and uncompromising. Edmund Beaumont frowned on the screen. Are you planning to run my brand yourself? No, Darius replied, his voice deep and calm. I'm planning to save it from the people who have been rotting it from within. He switched slides. Charts appeared showing revenue down 8% in the last quarter. Negative feedback up 300%. This is no longer an isolated mistake, Darius said. It's a cultural problem. I'm announcing 3 immediate actions. He looked up, voice firm. First, suspend Victoria Hale, the store manager. Second, suspend Lucy Grant and require her to complete 40 hours of training. Third, issue a formal warning to security guard Owen Patel for failing to intervene and prevent escalation. On screen, Edmund's anger flared. You're destroying my brand's image! Darius remained composed. No, I'm protecting it. A reputation isn't destroyed by mistakes, it's destroyed by silence after mistakes. On the ground floor, Victoria's phone buzzed. The message read, suspended from duty, effective immediately. She stared at the screen, her lips trembling. Lucy received the same message, and when her eyes reached the line mandatory training, she bowed her head as a tear fell into her palm. On the 17th floor, Darius continued, his tone slower but still commanding. Tomorrow, we announce the reform plan. At 6 tonight, I'll hold a press conference. The public needs to see that justice isn't just punishment, it's reconstruction. The golden afternoon light glowed across his shoulders. The room stayed silent. Hugo finally asked quietly, Darius, do you really intend to start today? He nodded slightly. Yes. Every change must begin exactly where the wrong began. Downstairs, hurried footsteps echoed. Employees exchanged brief emails without speaking a word. And high above, the man once dismissed for wearing a gray hoodie had begun turning 12 minutes of humiliation into years of reform. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the last light of day spilled across the glass facade of Beaumont Atelier, reflecting its polished yet hollow sign. Inside, the air was heavy as lead. Employees stood still, eyes fixed on their phones. The same message appeared on every screen. Victoria Hale suspended. Lucy Grant on temporary leave. Owen Patel officially warned. No one spoke. Only the soft echo of elegant background music lingered like a quiet mockery. Victoria sat in her office, gripping her phone tightly, 15 years of service erased in a single email. Lucy sat at the counter, tears falling onto her trembling hands. The image of the man in the gray hoodie replayed vividly in her mind. His calm gaze. His measured voice. I just wanted to see. Now she understood. She had been tested, and she had failed. Owen Patel, the security guard, stood by the wall staring through the glass. He had once been a police officer, but he had never seen such a small mistake turn into a storm this great. His internal alert buzzed, prepare to receive the legal audit team. Owen exhaled heavily. Things had spun far beyond his control. On the 17th floor, Darius Cole remained in the conference room. Sunlight filtered through the glass, casting sharp highlights on his composed face. Annika Rao spoke through the screen. The media has published the story. The video is spreading fast, but if we announce the reform plan before tonight, we can still control the narrative." Darius nodded. 6 o'clock. Press conference at the store. No avoidance. Hugo Laurent interjected. "Are you appearing with Edmund Beaumont? If he wants to keep his brand, he'll have to stand beside me." Darius closed his laptop and rose from his chair. "I'm going downstairs. I want to look at them one more time before the reconstruction begins." When the elevator doors opened, every gaze in the boutique froze. Darius stepped out, no longer the unassuming customer from before. In a crisp white shirt, his sleeves neatly rolled, his voice calm but heavy with meaning, he said, "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to correct what should never have happened." Lucy lowered her head, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry." Darius looked at her, his tone soft but firm. "Mistakes can be forgiven when they lead to change. You'll learn again, and perhaps become the proof that a person can grow." He turned to Victoria. 15 years of experience should have taught you the difference between caution and prejudice, yet you allowed fear to outweigh reason. I don't want to hear another excuse." Victoria nodded, voice breaking. "I understand. I allowed this store to betray its own values." "No," Darius replied. "You only forgot them for a moment. Now it's time to remember." He looked toward Owen. "You were the only one who could have stopped it before it went too far. But you stayed silent. Security is not just about protecting merchandise, it's about protecting dignity." Owen bowed his head. "I was wrong, sir. I'll make it right." Darius gave a small nod. "That's where every change begins, with accountability." His voice carried through the silent room. "No one here is condemned, but everyone is responsible. We will not hide this. This store will be the first in the luxury world to prove that fairness is more than a slogan." He stopped under the dim light, his gaze sweeping across the room. "You saw me as someone unworthy of service, but today you will learn to see yourselves instead." No one spoke. When Darius turned to leave, silence engulfed the space. The elevator doors closed, his reflection fading into the glass. On the 17th floor, the golden light of evening spread across London. Darius looked down, seeing the people below like small fragments in the painting he was about to redraw, a new picture with no arrogance, no prejudice, only a lasting lesson on the true worth of humanity. At 10 to 6, the sun tilted across the glass towers of Knightsbridge Avenue. In front of Beaumont Atelier, several media vans lined the curb, their cameras aimed at the gleaming sign. The video, titled "Knightsbridge Drama," had surpassed 200,000 views. Social media was in an uproar. Inside, employees stood in formation, faces tense. Lucy Grant kept her head bowed, eyes red from tears. Behind her, Victoria Hale stood rigid, hands clenched, awaiting the inevitable. In a temporary office, Darius Cole adjusted his tie. The fading sunlight spilled over his shoulders, casting a calm yet resolute glow on his face. On the screen, legal advisor Annika Rao spoke. "The press has arrived. Edmund Beaumont is connected remotely. You just need to deliver the message of reform." Darius replied evenly, "We won't talk about mistakes. We'll say only that change begins today." He walked down the hallway toward the main hall. The silence was so deep that each step on the marble floor echoed clearly. When Darius appeared, every camera turned toward him. He stopped under the bright lights, his voice deep and steady. "Today, we are not talking about one person's mistake. We are talking about how an entire system must change." A few murmurs rose, then faded. At 3 this afternoon, I entered this store as a regular customer. I was not greeted, I was not respected, simply because I didn't look wealthy. I'm not the only one who has lived that experience. But today, we end it. He pointed to the screen behind him, where large words appeared. Retail Equality Protocol. a Beaumont initiative. From this day forward, Beaumont Atelier will be the first luxury boutique to implement a transparent service system. Every employee will undergo bias awareness training. Every customer review will be made public and independently monitored. We are not saving an image. We are rebuilding trust. On the screen, Edmund Beaumont appeared, his aging face heavy with regret. "I take responsibility," he said hoarsely. "We forgot that luxury is not in the price, but in how people are treated." A reporter raised his hand. "Mr. Cole, how will you handle those involved?" "No one will be erased," Darius said firmly. "But everyone will change. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is the act of correction." Lucy bowed her head, tears falling onto the floor. Victoria looked up, eyes filled with remorse. Darius continued, "This store will reopen under the supervision of a community council. We will prove that fairness and profit can coexist. Respect doesn't make anyone poorer. It only makes us stronger." A light round of applause began, growing steadily louder. Reporters scribbled notes as camera flashes flickered across the room. One journalist whispered to a colleague, "He just turned a crisis into a living lesson." The press conference ended. Darius left the hall and stepped outside. The sunset painted the sidewalk gold, the evening breeze carrying the scent of new leather and fine perfume. He looked up at the Beaumont Atelier sign, the golden letters still shining, but now with a different meaning. Inside, Lucy quietly asked Victoria, "Do you think we can make things right?" "Yes," Victoria replied softly, "as long as we don't hide." Upstairs, Darius stood by the window. His phone buzzed, a message from Annika Rao, social sentiment shifting positive. Hashtag Botcher Beaumont Reform trending up. He smiled faintly and closed the phone. Down below, the streetlights began to glow. He spoke quietly, almost as a promise to himself. "I don't need praise. I just need them to learn to see others with fairness in their eyes." At 7 in the evening, the lights of Knightsbridge shimmered to life. After the press conference, Beaumont Atelier was no longer bustling. The air inside had fallen into stillness, broken only by the soft sound of rain tapping against the glass. Darius Cole remained with a few key staff members. The light reflected across the marble floor, cold and silent, as if the once luxurious space was learning how to be quiet before beginning again. Lucy Grant sat by the counter, her eyes swollen and red. In her hands was the notice titled Mandatory Unconscious Bias Training, 40 hours. She read each line slowly, shame and fear rising in her chest. Darius approached, his voice calm but deep. "You can refuse," he said, "but if you stay, make sure you truly learn." Lucy looked up, her voice trembling. "I don't want to leave. I want to understand why I was wrong." Darius nodded. "Then tomorrow, you'll train with Dr. Amelia Hart. She's worked with major organizations on equality and respect." In the office, Victoria Hale signed her suspension document, her hand shaking though her strokes remained firm. Darius watched her. 15 years in this business should have taught you the difference between caution and prejudice. Your failure wasn't in what you did, but in your silence. Victoria lowered her head. "I was afraid of losing customers, losing profit." "Profit can't replace dignity," he replied. She nodded, tears falling onto the page. On the video screen, Annika Rao's voice came steady. "Media coverage is turning positive. Edmund Beaumont has approved the reform program." "Send me the full plan by morning," Darius said. "I want every change documented weekly." At 8 o'clock, Dr. Amelia Hart arrived. The tall woman wore a light gray suit, her eyes sharp and focused. "I heard you've all had a long day," she began, her voice soft yet commanding. "But sometimes the hardest days open the door to the best changes." She spread documents across the table. "The program, Bias reset. Will run for 30 days. Everyone, including management, will participate. We'll learn to recognize prejudice, communicate with respect, and handle real-world situations. It won't be comfortable, but it will be necessary. Owen Patel, the security guard, spoke up. Even me? Especially you, Amelia replied. Security doesn't just protect property, it protects people. Owen nodded, his eyes heavy with reflection. Darius observed them all, then said quietly, We're not just fixing this store. We're building the foundation for a fair model of business. If we succeed, the place that once stood for arrogance will become an example of change. Victoria lifted her eyes and asked softly, And if we fail? Then at least, Darius answered, we had the courage to start. Outside, the rain fell steadily, reflecting streaks of light across the street. Lucy looked through the window and whispered, Why did you come back after how they treated you? Darius paused before replying, Because I used to be like them, judging others to feel safe. I came back to remind myself that fairness doesn't exist by chance. It needs someone brave enough to begin it. The room grew quiet. The rain softened. Amelia gathered her papers and said gently, Tomorrow, we begin by listening. Darius looked around the room, his eyes calm yet resolute. I'll be here, he said, not as a CEO, but as a person. He paused, his tone deep and sure. When respect returns, that's when the true beginning starts. Outside, the Beaumont Atelier sign glowed brightly through the rain. No longer a symbol of pride, it now stood quietly as the first mark of rebirth, a place where luxury was being redefined by dignity. The next morning, London lay beneath a veil of mist. Faint sunlight filtered through the glass facade of Beaumont Atelier, marking the first day of the Bias Reset program. There were no luxury customers, no laughter of pride, only 10 chairs arranged in a circle on the marble floor and silent faces waiting to begin. Darius Cole arrived early, dressed simply in a gray shirt, a notebook in hand. Dr. Amelia Hart stood at the center of the circle, her voice low and warm. Today there are no superiors or subordinates. We are simply people learning how to see each other without judgment. Lucy Grant sat beside Owen Patel, her hands clasped tightly, eyes red from lack of sleep. Across from them, Victoria Hale maintained her composure, though her gaze had softened. Amelia spoke gently. Share a moment when you realized you misjudged someone. Silence lingered before Lucy finally spoke. When Mr. Cole walked in, I saw only the hoodie and the old shoes. I thought he couldn't afford anything. I forgot that my job was to serve, not to measure someone's worth. Darius listened quietly, his expression softening. Owen followed. I saw it happen. I could have stepped in, but I was afraid of overstepping management. Now I understand that silence is also complicity. Amelia nodded. Awareness is the first step toward change. Thank you for being honest. She turned to Darius. Would you like to share something? He paused before answering. I used to think that to be respected, I had to look like the wealthy. But true respect comes from how we treat others, not from the clothes we wear. The tension in the room eased. Amelia handed out worksheets. A customer dressed casually walks in and asks for the most expensive item. What do you do? Lucy replied. Ask about their needs, not their money. Victoria added. Judge by attitude, not appearance. Amelia smiled. Good. Change begins with small actions like that. During the break, Darius stood by the glass window, watching the misty street. Lucy approached quietly. Thank you for giving me another chance, she said softly. Don't thank me, he replied. Prove it. She nodded, a new light in her eyes. Later that afternoon, Amelia presented a plan to Darius. 3 phases: training, supervision, evaluation. with transparent reporting and public feedback. "Do it," he said. "The more transparent we are, the stronger we become." When the session ended, Victoria approached him. "I don't need my old position back," she said slowly, "but I want to stay and help train the new staff. I owe this place that much." Darius studied her for a moment, then nodded. "If you're sincere about change, I won't stop you." Outside, a group of young visitors paused to take photos in front of the new sign that read, "Beaumont Reform in Progress." Online, comments praising Darius for turning crisis into opportunity spread rapidly, but he didn't pay attention. He only watched the people leaving the room, their faces lighter, their eyes calmer than the day before. Amelia approached him and asked quietly, "Do you believe they'll truly change?" "Not in one day," Darius replied, "but the seed has been planted, and I'll be here to watch it grow." Beyond the glass, the evening light melted into reflections on the windows. The sign of Beaumont Atelier mirrored the silhouettes of people learning once again how to see the world through eyes no longer clouded by prejudice, but filled with respect. A week later, London was still draped in a soft rain. Beaumont Atelier had changed. There were no more sharp footsteps or cold smiles of the elite, only the gentle sound of the bias reset training echoing through the softly lit space. Dr. Amelia Hart stood at the center of a circle of employees, her voice warm yet firm. "Prejudice doesn't disappear in a day, but every right action can reshape an entire system." Darius Cole sat quietly in the back row, dressed in a simple gray shirt, observing every face. He noticed Lucy Grant, now speaking with confidence instead of fear. "I learned that prejudice is like dust," she said. "If you don't look closely, you'll never see it." The room fell silent. At the far end, Victoria Hale listened intently. Her once stern expression softened. That afternoon, Darius met virtually with Annika Rao and Hugo Laurent. The report on the screen showed customer satisfaction up 14% in just 1 week, while articles about retail equality were spreading across social media. Edmund Beaumont had agreed to return to the public eye. "They're starting to see us differently," Hugo said. "No," Darius replied. "They're starting to see us more clearly, and we have to be worthy of that." That evening, Amelia conducted a practical exercise. A participant played the role of a customer in a worn coat, asking for the most expensive watch. Lucy approached with a warm smile. "Of course, sir. I'd be happy to show you." She didn't glance at the shoes, didn't hesitate to mention the price. When the customer left, Amelia nodded. "That's what change looks like." Lucy smiled, feeling lighter for the first time since that fateful afternoon. In the corner, Victoria was taking notes. After the session, she approached Darius. "I want to help redesign the service policy," she said softly, "to put customer dignity above sales." "Do it," Darius replied. "Turn mistakes into lessons for others." When he left the store, the rain had eased. The Knightsbridge lights glowed against the new sign, Beaumont Atelier, reimagined for everyone. The simple phrase made him stop for a moment. That night, in his office, Darius opened his laptop. Dozens of emails waited, journalists, scholars, and business leaders eager to learn from his model. Among them was a message from an economics student. "Thank you, sir. Your story showed me that fairness isn't just an ideal. It's a survival strategy." He reread it and smiled quietly. The next morning, Amelia arrived with a report. "We're seeing real progress. Negative feedback has nearly vanished, and staff morale has clearly improved. It's not the numbers that matter," Darius said. "It's whether they truly believe in what they're doing." At noon, he invited all staff to lunch in the main hall. There were no VIP tables, no one seated apart. He retold the story of the day he was turned away, his voice calm and steady. "I'm not telling this to make anyone feel ashamed. I'm telling it to remind us that respect is the only true foundation of luxury." The room went silent. Then applause filled the space, genuine and warm. When everyone left, Darius remained alone, gazing around the softly lit room. The watches in the glass cases reflected the lights like hundreds of quiet eyes observing a new world taking shape. He stepped outside and paused beneath the freshly polished sign. The words, "For everyone," glowed boldly beneath the logo, like a promise. A cool breeze passed, carrying the scent of rain and leather. Darius murmured to himself, "We're not just selling luxury. We're learning again what it means to be human." Inside, Amelia gathered her papers, the light glinting off the glass walls, illuminating faces now softened with quiet smiles. Beaumont Atelier was no longer the same store. It had become something new, a symbol of rebirth, where luxury was now measured by the respect shown to every human being. 2 weeks later, London remained draped in gray mist, but Beaumont Atelier was transformed. The air of arrogance was gone, replaced by calm and dignity. The store glowed with soft light, music playing at a gentle volume. In the center of the marble floor, Lucy Grant greeted an elderly man in a worn coat. "Which model would you like to see, sir?" "This one, it must be expensive," he said hesitantly. Lucy smiled. "Price is just a number, but the right choice has its own value." The man chuckled, his eyes softening. From a distance, Darius Cole watched silently, giving a quiet nod of approval. Dr. Amelia Hart approached, handing him a tablet. This week's customer survey scored 4.8 out of 5, all positive comments. Darius replied, "What matters isn't the score, but that they've learned what true respect means." That afternoon, Edmund Beaumont returned after weeks of silence. He walked slowly, emotion visible in his eyes. "I once thought you were destroying my brand," he said softly. "But perhaps you saved it." "No one saved anything," Darius answered. "We simply repaired our way of being human." Edmund said nothing, his gaze resting on the new phrase displayed above the counter. "Luxury begins with respect." At that moment, a television crew entered to film the Beaumont transformation story. Lucy looked nervous under the camera lights, but Amelia reassured her, "Just be yourself." When a reporter asked Darius, "How long do you think this movement will last?" he replied calmly, "Fairness isn't a campaign, it's a culture. Once awakened, no one wants to return to sleep." That evening, the news segment aired. Footage of Lucy serving customers and Darius's speech spread rapidly online. Comments poured in. "This is real luxury. Respect is the new elegance." The hashtag #OugeLuxury with dignity surged, surpassing 1 million views within hours. The next morning, Darius arrived early. Victoria Hale was training a new employee, a shy young man of Indian descent. "The first step," she said, "is not greeting with words, but with your eyes. No judgment, only listening." Darius overheard and smiled. "Well done," he said. Victoria turned, nodding gently. "I learned that from you." That afternoon, Annika Rao sent a message. "BBC wants an interview." "They're calling Beaumont the face of retail reform." Darius simply replied, "No interviews. Let the results speak." When the city lights came on, Darius sat alone in the 17th floor conference room. London's glow filtered through the glass, illuminating the chart titled Retail Equality Protocol, Week 3. The lines of sales growth and customer satisfaction rose together. But what caught his attention were the handwritten notes from customers. "I felt welcomed. This was the first time I wasn't judged while shopping." He closed the laptop and looked down at the floor below. Lucy was chatting with a client. Owen stood calmly by the door. And in the corner, Victoria organized paperwork, her expression peaceful. Everything moved smoothly, as if the store had never faced a storm. Amelia entered with a cup of tea. "Things are getting better every day," she said. "Yes," Darius replied, "but true change only comes when fairness becomes habit." "Do you really believe people can change completely?" she asked. "No," he said quietly, "but they can learn to stop before they're wrong." Outside, the night rain fell softly, the streetlights turning each droplet into a glimmer of light. Darius looked down at the street and murmured, "The day they turned me away was the day I learned the true worth of dignity." Below, the store lights dimmed, but the sign still shone brightly. Beaumont Atelier, for everyone. Through the misty rain, it was no longer just an advertisement, but a promise. That luxury is not what you wear, but how you treat others. 3 months later, Beaumont Atelier had become a celebrated story throughout London. What began as a viral scandal was now hailed as a model of cultural renewal in the luxury retail industry. But for Darius Cole, it was only the beginning. On Monday morning, he stood in the 17th floor conference room, gazing down at the bright streets of Knightsbridge. Below, the crowds flowed endlessly, and the sign reading Beaumont Atelier for everyone had become a popular photo spot. "Attention is a double-edged sword," Darius said to Operations Director Hugo Laurent. "If we don't maintain our standards, a single mistake could undo everything." Hugo nodded. "We've scheduled secret audits every week. All ratings are above 4.7. Dr. Amelia Hart entered, carrying a thick report. Phase 2, Cultural Inclusion, begins today. We'll be implementing a real-time customer feedback system. Darius opened the folder, scanning it quickly. Good. Let every customer know their voice is heard before they leave the store. At noon, he walked to the ground floor. The atmosphere was entirely different from 3 months ago. Calm, professional, confident. Lucy Grant was instructing a new intern, her tone steady and clear. Remember, customers don't buy products. They buy the feeling of being respected. Darius listened, a faint look of pride in his eyes. Victoria Hale, now serving as training consultant, approached. We're testing a new scoring model called the Respect Index. Each employee is rated by customers after every interaction. And the lowest score? Darius asked. 4.3, she said with a half smile. 3 months ago, I wouldn't have dared to imagine that. That's why we keep going, he replied. In the afternoon, the Community Advisory Council meeting convened in the back conference room. The members included representatives from civil rights organizations, retail associations, and loyal customers. An elderly woman spoke up. What impresses me most is the attitude. No one looks at me with suspicion anymore. I feel truly welcomed. Others nodded in agreement. Darius listened carefully, taking notes. After the meeting, Amelia approached him. You know, other stores have started asking about this program. They want to replicate the Retail Equality Protocol. The more the better, Darius said. If fairness becomes a competitive advantage, then we've already won. That evening, he attended the London Retail Excellence Awards. When the host announced, the special award for ethical leadership in business goes to Beaumont Atelier. The applause filled the entire hall. Darius walked onto the stage, the lights illuminating his face. Holding the microphone, he spoke slowly. 3 months ago, this store was an example of what was wrong. Today, it's proof that mistakes don't have to be the end if we have the courage to face them. Luxury isn't just about products, it's about attitude. The entire room rose to its feet. Edmund Beaumont, seated in the front row, clapped the longest. As Darius stepped down, Edmund said quietly, "You've made me proud." Darius replied, "I just did what should have been done from the start." Late that night, Darius returned to the store. Only the golden lights glowed over the empty glass displays. He walked slowly across the marble floor, the echo of his footsteps filling the silence. Lucy had gone home, Victoria had left, and only Owen Patel remained, the former guard, now head of service supervision. "I just rewatched the footage from 3 months ago," Owen said. "It feels like looking at a different man." "We're all different now," Darius replied. "But what matters is remembering why we changed." His gaze lingered on a small plaque near the entrance. "Respect is our luxury." Those simple words held everything. Outside, London shimmered with night lights. Darius stepped out, pulling the glass door gently closed behind him. The store's glow reflected on his face as he smiled, not a smile of victory, but of peace, the quiet satisfaction of someone who had rebuilt the meaning of an old truth. That luxury is not measured by price, but by how we treat one another. 6 months later, Beaumont Atelier had become the story everyone in London was talking about. The store that was once boycotted had now become a new symbol of ethical luxury. Gone were the cold stares, replaced by warm smiles and an atmosphere of trust. Lucy Grant, now assistant manager, was training 2 new employees. "Customers don't just buy products," she said. "They buy the feeling of being respected." One of them asked, "What if they just look and leave?" Lucy smiled. "If they walk away with a good impression, that's still success." On the 17th floor, Darius Cole reviewed the reports showing a 23% rise in revenue and nearly double the rate of returning customers. Dr. Amelia Hart entered, her voice bright with satisfaction. "This month's survey shows 95% of customers felt they were treated equally." Darius replied, "There's no magic in that, just people finally treating each other the right way." That afternoon, the Community Advisory Council gathered. Victoria Hale, now training coordinator, reported, "We've trained 43 employees, and 8 other stores are adopting the Beaumont model." A young student spoke up, "I believe real change can start from small places." Applause filled the room. When the meeting ended, Victoria stepped out to the balcony. Darius was already there, the golden light of evening falling across them both. "I used to feel ashamed of myself," she said softly. "Now I feel like I'm finally doing something right." "That's the real reward," Darius replied with a calm smile. That evening, the celebration event Beaumont, a year of change, took place. The boutique had been transformed into a gallery, displaying images of its journey before and after the reform. The old video played of Darius saying, "Fairness is not a campaign. It's a culture." The guests sat in silence. When the lights came on, he stepped onto the stage, simple yet steady. A year ago, this place was a symbol of judgment. Today, it stands as proof that dignity can be restored when we have the courage to face ourselves. The applause thundered through the room. Edmund Beaumont shook his hand tightly. "You didn't just save my brand," he said. "You saved its meaning." "No one needs saving," Darius replied. "We just need to remember that respect is the beginning of all good things." After the ceremony, Lucy looked out at the glowing city streets. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think I understood fairness, but I never truly did." "Realizing that means you've already changed," Darius said with a gentle smile. A few days later, the newspapers ran headlines. "The Beaumont Effect, When Ethics Become a Business Advantage." Dozens of luxury brands began adopting similar training programs. The hashtag "Why Respect is Luxury" spread across social media. Late at night, Darius returned to his office. On the wall was written, "Retail Equality Protocol, Phase 3 complete." He took a pen and added a line beneath it, "Maintain with heart." Then he switched off the lights and looked down at the store glowing beneath him. The sign Beaumont Atelier, for everyone, reflected against the glass, a quiet reminder of the principle he had fought to uphold. That true luxury is never about the price, but about the way people treat one another. 1 year later, Beaumont Atelier had become the new emblem of transformation in the world of luxury retail. The once controversial store was now a global case study for ethical reinvention. Darius Cole's story, Luxury with Dignity, was being taught at leading business and media universities across the world, from London to New York to Singapore. Prestigious brands that had once turned away from uncomfortable conversations were now adopting the Retail Equality Protocol, a model born from a single moment of prejudice and rebirth. That morning, Darius stood in the grand auditorium of the London School of Economics, addressing hundreds of students, professors, and future leaders. The spotlight reflected off the polished wood floor as he began his speech. "The day I was rejected because of how I looked," he said calmly, "was the day I realized that arrogance destroys value faster than any financial failure ever could. Respect is not a cost. It is the most sustainable profit a business can create." For a long moment, the audience was silent, absorbing every word. Then the entire hall erupted in applause, a wave of sound echoing through the marble corridors. That afternoon, Darius returned to Beaumont Atelier. The store was alive, yet peaceful, luxury without pretense, refinement without fear. Behind the counter, Lucy Grant, now the store's manager, greeted him with a confident smile. "We've hit a new record," she said proudly. "Over 90% of customers have returned. Many said they came back because of how they were treated." Darius nodded with quiet satisfaction. "Keep doing what's right," he said. "When we lead with respect, profit will always find its way." In the corner, Victoria Hale was guiding a small group of interns. Her voice was steady, her presence calm. "I used to be afraid of losing customers," she admitted, "and in that fear, I forgot what respect truly meant. Now I've learned that serving with sincerity is the foundation of every lasting success." Darius watched her for a moment, then smiled softly without a word. That evening, the 17th floor conference room glowed with golden light. Dr. Amelia Hart stood at the head of the table, presenting her latest report. "System-wide revenue is up 31%, she announced. "But more importantly, customer trust has reached an all-time high. People don't just shop here, they believe in what we represent." Darius leaned back, his voice low but firm. "Victory isn't measured by numbers. It's measured by trust, by the feeling people take with them when they leave." When the meeting ended, Amelia turned to him. "Do you ever regret revealing your identity that day?" she asked. Darius smiled faintly. "No," he said. "If that moment hadn't happened, I would never have understood the depth of fairness. Every mistake is an invitation to grow, if we have the courage to face it." Later that night, the rain fell softly over Knightsbridge. Darius walked along the quiet street, the lights of London shimmering on the wet pavement. Through the glass windows, he could see customers of every background being welcomed with the same warmth and dignity. He stopped for a moment, remembering the humiliation from that day, the cameras, the whispers, the disbelief. That very place, once a symbol of judgment, had become a beacon of respect. A young student approached, clutching a notebook. "Mr. Cole," he said shyly, "thank you. Your story made me believe that real change is possible." Darius smiled gently. "I didn't create change," he replied. "I only reminded people of the goodness that was already within them." Inside, Lucy was arranging watches with care. Victoria was reviewing new training materials, and Owen Patel, now head of service, greeted customers with calm professionalism. The atmosphere was soft and harmonious, like a quiet melody of trust and redemption. Darius stopped outside, gazing up at the glowing sign. "Beaumont Atelier for everyone." The words shimmered against the dark sky, their light reflecting in the puddles of rain. He whispered to himself, "I came here once with anger, but now I leave with gratitude. True victory is never about revenge. It's about transformation. Across the street, a massive screen played a documentary segment about Beaumont's journey. The headline read, "From a moment of prejudice to a movement that transformed an industry." His recorded voice filled the air, steady and clear. Luxury isn't about what you own. It's about how you make others feel valued. Darius smiled as he walked away into the drizzle. Beneath the glowing city lights, his final words lingered in the London night like a quiet truth carried by the rain. Respect is the only true luxury.